Hi Becky, hi Sarah, hey Linda, how's everyone going? Hope everyone's doing okay today. I'm just checking for things to pop up on my computer at the moment, so just bear with me after last week's debacle. We've got a lot to cover tonight, so if you've got any questions, please put them down the bottom and I'll try to get to them as best as I can. I do have quite an extensive list here to go through. So yeah, we're just about to go, and I'll just about to go to 10 o'clock, and I'm going to start talking about what I want to talk about today. So if you want to just quickly let everybody know that I'm live, and send them a reminder, whether it's in inbox or whether it's by tagging them in this video, you can do that. I just want to start out by also saying thank you so much to everybody that has been sharing my blog and my YouTube channel and everything that you have been doing to get me out there. I really do appreciate the love and support that you've been giving me. We're still having a few hiccups and whatnot, so we are trying to... oh, hi Wendy, how are you going? We are trying to get through all those hiccups that we've been experiencing on both the channel with cameras and also here on Facebook, but we're getting there. Beck has been helping me in the background. She can't join us today. She's got an interview and some personal stuff to take care of. So yeah, she's been helping me to get the audio right and to also to make sure that everything's working okay. So what we've done to alleviate the issue that we had last week where I kept saying I was live but I couldn't see anything, we've actually just started up another group, a secret group, and we're toing and froing in there. We've learnt something this morning which I didn't know that you could do, but we've learnt just quickly. We were in the other group and I hit on a button on the bottom of my screen and it says to add people to the chat, and I ended up with a split screen. So it was sort of like FaceTime that we were doing together, and it worked really well. I then took her out of that chat and then tried to add her back in, and it wouldn't let me. So I'll do a little bit more research on that, because I think that'll be great for doing interviews and stuff like that down the track, which I thought that some of you might be a bit interested in, especially with some of our Australian designers and whatnot. So today I am going to be covering a lot of questions from prep work to EQ7, how to subscribe to the channel so you get notifications, how to subscribe to our blog. I have been playing around with the camera this morning, trying to get my computer to come up, but I am still having a little bit of issues with that because I'm not as tech savvy as some people might think I am, so I am learning on the job. So once I get that sorted out, if I don't today, I will actually just set my camera up facing my computer, and I won't do a live stream for that. I will just do a quick how to subscribe to both the blog and to the YouTube channel, and so you also get notifications. And also we've had a bit of an influx of new members, so I'd like to say a big welcome to you all. I'm glad you're here joining us. I hope you're enjoying the activity of the group and the toing and froing of questions and everything like that. It's very, very exciting. People are engaging with one another, and that's exactly what I wanted for my group. And it's not really my group, it's our group, and it's a great place to share, and you can share whatever you're working on. It doesn't have to be something off our YouTube channel at all. It can be whatever you're working on at the time. Anything you take pride in, please share it. We'd love to see it. I do have a crafty tutorial going up tomorrow, which is Friday for me, so that'll be Thursday evening for you guys. And it's just a quick little paper crafty item that I've done. Alrighty, so I can see that lots of people are starting to join us, and I'll give you another couple of minutes for you to join us. But just one thing I wanted to say, again, thank you very much for sharing. Thank you very much for getting my YouTube channel out there, and thank you very much for getting my blog out. I really do appreciate it. And for those that don't know me, my name's Nicole Reed, and I'm the owner of Darvanalee Designs here in Kingaroy, Queensland. I'm a long arm quilting business, but I also run quilting, patchworking classes and craft classes in my studio. So hence the name Darvanalee Designs Studio for the YouTube channel and the blog. And basically what I'm trying to do is for all those people that are isolated or can't get out to an in-store class here at Kingaroy, or they live overseas like some of our members do, but love to see what we're up to and want to join in classes. This is why I have started doing this. It's so that we can connect together in a mutual love of crafting. So that's me in a nutshell, and that's why I'm doing this. Alrighty, so let's get started on some of these questions that we have. Okay, the biggest question of the day and the evening is the math behind this block. And unfortunately, I cannot answer your question definitively because I'm still waiting for people to get back to me. Now, they did tell me that I have to use a scant quarter-inch foot. So a scant quarter-inch foot, the reason you use a scant quarter-inch foot, this will accommodate for your thread as well as your stitching. Okay, so if you're using a 50 weight thread, which is what most of us use, and you use a scant quarter-inch foot, scant quarter-inch seam allowance, you're going to end up with a nice quarter-inch seam and everything's going to go together. The problem is that if you use a 40 weight thread, which some of us do, and like I was looking at my threads this morning, and I've got signature threads here, I've got Gutermann threads here, and I've got Aurifil. I don't have a lot of Aurifil, they're just my personal stuff, but the stuff that I sell are signature, Maxi Lock, Permacore, and Gutermann threads. Now, they were all supposed to be around the 50 weight mark, and they were all varying in size. Apparently, this can make a difference to your seam allowance. So this may be why some of your seams, your 9 patches, are coming in smaller. Now, they assured me that the math is correct from what they have told me, because I contacted EQ7 and said to them, you know, this is the block that we're doing. This is what's happening. It's supposed to be this size. And so everything, from what I've told them, they've said everything is correct. So I've done the measurements and I'm with you guys. It's not adding up. But so then I went and printed off the next block with the same requirements, that it's going to be a 12-inch finished block once it's into our quilt, and it's using the 7/8 again. So what I'm going to say at this point is I'm going to assume that all our blocks are going to end up the same size, and obviously as we get better working with the smaller pieces, which there's not too many small pieces, I promise, like the 1 1/4, and the next one doesn't have any 1 1/4s in it, so you'll be happy about that. So yeah, so they've sort of assured me that yes, it is, is going to work out okay. So that's the best I can do for that question at the moment. As I find out more, I will let you know, whether it be in live streaming or whether it'll be just in a post. Okay, so be aware that I'm using a 50 weight thread, which is my Aurifil, and I tested my seams this morning as well. Like, I went back in and tested. All my seams are a scant quarter-inch, because that's the way my feet, my presser foot is. It's set up for that. And then I went onto my vintage machine and I did, I checked for a scant quarter-inch, and it's stitching the same. But I have actually got a piece of tape on my on the bed of my sewing machine on that one, which I'll take a photo of that and add that into the comments later on, and that is set up for a scant quarter-inch seam allowance. So what I will do after I've done this live, because some of you will be going, well, how do you know if it's a scant quarter-inch and all that sort of stuff? So what I'm going to do after I've done the live one, which I only thought about this about 10 minutes ago, is actually do a video on how I have set my vintage machine up and how my newer, more modern machine is set up. Now, there's probably plenty of stuff that you could find on YouTube. There's a lot. I did do a search and a lot came up, and it was a lot to sift through, and not everybody was explaining it very well on the ones that I've seen. So I will try to do my best to show you how to get a scant quarter-inch seam allowance. Short of that, just use your 1/4 foot at this point, because they've said to me that your blocks might come in slightly smaller. It won't be, you know, 12.5, it might come in at 12.25, but if all your blocks across the board are 12.25 before they go into, you won't lose your point. So I've got mine up here on the design board so I could just show you. Okay, so can you see that? Yep, that's okay. I'll just tilt this down a little bit. There we go. So basically you can see here my block's gone together, and like you, Jill, I had some issues with my seams moving, and that's one of my fatal flaws in my piecing. I do more quilting than I do piecing. So for me, this is a practice run as well. But you can see on the outside here, see, this is going to be going into the quilt. So you can see that I've got a 1/4 inch all the way around and even down the bottom. So when I sew a sashing, or I sew it into a quilt, or even if I was just to leave this as it was and do it as a mini quilt for my wall, the binding, I won't lose my points as long as I'm doing, you know, a 1/4. If I do a heavy 1/4 inch, more on the fat side than the slimmer side, then yeah, I'm going to lose my points. But if I'm very accurate and going around, I'm not going to lose those points there. So they've assured me that the math is right, and as I said to them, this is what I've printed out this morning and explained to them, and they've gone from our toing and froing with emails, yes, we're okay. And no, the math doesn't add up, so they are still looking into it for me. So all I can do at this point is tell you, please don't stress. Let's not get hung up on that now. Let's just make some blocks, and worst case scenario is that we end up we'll end up using them in table runners, or we might make a heap of mini quilts. But I can assure you that we'll get through this, and we will get to the end, and we'll be thinking to ourselves, what were we all worried about? Okay, and I've noticed that some beautiful blocks are going up, and you know, they're all got their, and I've been checking to see if they've got their 1/4 inch around, and yes, they have. Linda's been extra busy, and she's made 2 this week, so she's been flying along. Now the other one was the threads. We've got the seam allowance. They're going to get back to me on that one. So the other one was a bit of the prep work. So with your cutting, a question came up this week, I think it was from Valerie, about where you should lay your fabric on your ruler. Now, when you're going to cut your squares. So this is a really interesting question, because every ruler is different, and I'm just looking for my yellow one just to show you the difference between my Omni Grid one and my Fluoro yellow one. Just bear with me for a sec, I'll be back. Okay, so with the OmniGrid one, you can see here that, and if you've got one, go grab it and have a look at it. You can see your lines are quite thick. So for me, when I'm cutting with this one, I generally get my fabric to just hug the line. So it's not away from it. So I can't see the edge of the, I can't see the edge of the fabric. It's sort of just sitting underneath that line. And that's how I've been cutting mine. Okay, and then you look on this one here, which you can see, if I can get it to focus. No, it's not going to do it. Hang on a second. I'll just get my black background for this one. Then I'll make it focus a bit better. If I put it the right way. Okay, so you can see on this one, the inch one is quite thick, but see how these ones are quite fine? Okay, so this one I hug as well. Okay, but again, I can't see the edge of the fabric, so I can't see that the fabric is away from the line. It's hugging it. Okay, so it will depend on your ruler, on how thick the lines are. And on some rulers, I think I've got another one here, or it actually may be wrapped up. Yes, it's this one here. So I've got a smaller one of the same make, and I'll show you the thickness of these lines. Now these are phenomenal, and I don't use these rulers for anything but covering with wadding and and using them for design boards, because I made so many mistakes with these rulers. They're just a cheap ruler. They're the Edge ruler by Sullivan's, and I don't recommend them at all. They're supposed to sharpen your rotary blade, so they've got like a silver sandpaper type edge on it, and it's supposed to extend the life of your rotary blade. I find it dulls it and it doesn't do anything for it. But can you see how thick those lines are? That there is your 1/2 inch mark. So we're always using 1/2 inches, and you can see that is quite thick. And for a beginner quilter, if they got hold of this ruler and they put their fabric like underneath that, it is going to be bigger than 2.5 every time. So I tend not to use this ruler at all. I just find it, if I'm working with small blocks, I cover this as a temporary design board, and that's all they really ever get used for. Or if I'm actually wanting to square up to 9.5 inches, I'll use that, or this one for 16.5. So yeah, the rulers, that was a really interesting question, Valerie, and I really do thank you for asking that, because a lot of people do struggle with that. So for me, what I do is I hug the lines of where I've got to cut, and I just don't want to see any sort of fabric. So if I can see a little gap between the line and the fabric, then I know that I'm not far enough under. So just be aware of that, and it will help with your cutting too. You will be surprised how much that how much of a difference that can make. Now there's been a few questions about when you finished your block, you've ended up with wrinkles. Now I noticed that some of you said that you have been using steam. I don't use steam at all, and I do sometimes use a little bit of spritz at the end for my blocks, but rarely. I did on this one, mainly because I had left it sit and it needed to be, it got a bit creased, so I gave it another going over, but very, very minimal. I didn't use a lot because I don't like to wet it once it's together, because I have had that issue myself. So yeah, I don't use any steam, and I press, and I don't iron. I definitely try to get people into the habit of stamping as opposed to ironing. So if you can get into the habit of pressing and lifting your iron, then you're going to get a much better result. It's not going to stretch, it's not going to warp, especially when we're using with triangles and stuff like that. So yeah, just be aware of that and avoid steam. I'm not a lover of steam. Some people are. I just don't like it. I have more issues using steam than I do not. So I've always used a dry iron, and I starch all my fabrics, and as some of you would have noticed in the comments, I actually do double starch. So I turn my fabric over with the wrong side facing up, get all the wrinkles out that I can before starching, then hit it with some best press or whichever starch that you prefer, and I give it a good going over. And then basically I then flip it over to the right side up, and I give it an iron, and this is all before I've cut or anything. I give it another iron and then give it a spritz with my best press, and then I iron it again. And I find that even using your finer fabrics, that will give your fabric enough stability to get through the machine and give you more accurate piecing and also cutting, because you're doing that before you're cutting. So you're not getting those little bits of fabric lifting up like they do when you don't starch. So that's what I do. That's really all I can recommend with the whole wrinkle stuff. And then just hang it up. I find that if you put it up on your design wall, like you can see here, I've got a mini quilt, and for those here in Australia that are doing a class in DDs, this is our mini quilt that we're doing, so you've got a sneak peek there. Okay, so this one here, this has got a lot of triangles and little squares in it. So when I pressed it at the end of putting it all together, I found that it was still a little bit crinkly. Like you set your seams and stuff like that, but sometimes it still doesn't go together quite how you want it to, and you get those little wrinkles or what look like puckers, but they're not. I hang it up, and I find that after a while, and just going along and smoothing it every now and again, they do actually go away. So yeah, so you can see here it's starting to relax a little bit. And that's another thing too that I didn't mention, setting your seams too before you actually press them into place. So even with opening your seams up, sometimes even though we can do that at the machine, before I actually put it all together, I press them again, and then I put my block together. But what I do is actually stamp on the wrong side and set those seams into place, and I find that really helps. So I've done that this morning, and you can see there. Okay, so these seams are open. Okay, and you can see there's no puckering or whatsoever. That was done on my Singer L500 Quantum. And this one here, I actually used a bit of steam, okay, which I don't normally do and I don't like to do, but you can see there, see how the fabric has started to shrink? Okay, so that's the difference between the two. So that has actually, when I use the steam, that has created it, whereas this one wasn't steamed and it hasn't got that. So I don't know whether you can see that on camera. I can see it from my end, but I don't know whether that's translating for you guys. So can you see that there? So that's what the steam did this morning. So that was just some random fabrics that I pulled out of my scrap and sewed them to cut some 2.5 inch squares out of them, tested my seams, and that's what I did. So then I steamed one and I didn't steam the other one, and you can see the difference there. So give that a go and see if that helps you with the next block, or even just do a practice run with it and see how you go. All right, so we've covered the cutting. Another question that Jill had, has anybody ever had splotches left on their fabric after using the best press? In short, no, I never have. I'm not sure what one you are using. Are you using one that has like a colouring in it, or are you using a scentless one that's clear? Because I mostly use the scentless one, so I don't, I've never really used the colour ones, although I do have the one that's got a blue tinge to it, and I haven't had any problems either. Has anybody else had any problems with that? If you have, can you just comment below just to help Jill out? And Jill, can you tell us if it's still, are they still there after they completely dried, or has it actually stained your fabric? Because I'd really like to know, because I've never had that issue myself, and I don't know anybody else that's had it either. So that'd be a really good one to find out for everybody too. Okay, so Linda's saying that she's going to try a dry iron instead. Thank you for much getting my wrinkles out. Oh, it's lavender, is it? Okay, so it's scented and it's lavender. All right, Jill, I honestly, I can't tell you what the issue is there. Maybe if you shoot them off an email and ask them if they've got any, if I use too much best press, I have seen splotches, but it was from a dirty iron. Okay, so your iron was dirty, is that right, Mary? And if you use too much best press, you've seen, okay, so maybe that, and it's still there, Jill. Okay, alrighty. I'll wash the fabrics and see if it leaves the splotches. Yeah, if you could do that and let us know, that'd be great, because these are great tips for everybody that don't necessarily have not used best press before, and they may have the same problem. But from what I can see, Mary's saying that you need to just maybe clean your iron, don't have steam on, and use a little less. So stand back a little bit from your fabric and give it a spritz that way. If you're finding that there's too much coming out of the spray trigger that they've given you, maybe find another little travel one or something like that you know you get in makeup shops and everything, that you can put your toner in and stuff like that. Maybe get one of those. They usually have a nice even spray, so that might be the issue that you're having there. So give that a go and see if that works. Now there was also, Jill also had another question about her seams opening up at the ends earlier on in the week. Okay, I am terrible for not backstitching, so I don't know why. I seem not to want to do it. I forget to press the button. Sometimes I do remember, and I mostly remember when I'm getting to this stage. So when I'm putting the block together and I'm coming up to finishing it, you'll find that I do backstitch these ones because they're going to be sitting there and they don't come apart. And I think it comes down to when I was taught not to do backstitching, because all your seams are interlocked with one another once you sew the block together. The only ones that aren't are the ones around the outside of your block until your sashing goes on. So yeah, I don't tend to backstitch, and Melinda's saying that she doesn't either. But Jill, if you want to backstitch, go ahead, and just know that in all my videos, I'm probably not going to do it because I've forgotten to do it, but I'm going to try and remind myself. It's just one of those little hiccups that you get when you get taught how to do something, and then you just keep doing it that way, and then you tend to teach other people that way as well. So that is my bad, it's not yours. But one thing that will help is, you were saying that your machine, you had it down at a 2.0 like I did. Okay, what I suggest you do is do a couple of, and I think I addressed this in the post itself, just cut up a couple of squares and make a couple of 9 patches and make yourself some pot holders or something like that, and just practice with your machine doing the different stitch lengths. So you were saying, I think you said yours goes, the next increment down is 1.5. If it is that, just give that a go, because that way you'll see if it's going to open up or not, because it's a tighter stitch then. And yeah, I do have a reason for opening the seams up, okay, and you can go and test this if you like. I open the seams up when I'm using smaller pieces because your block will actually sit flatter. And if you look at the back, which mine's probably a little bit messy now, if you look at the back, you have a lot of seams that you've got to sew through, okay, and you want to be able to sew through them without too much of an issue. So especially with 9 patches and 4 patches, they sit a lot flatter when you've got all those seams coming into one another when you're sewing them all together, and that's why we're having our seams open. It's a tip that I picked up from Pat Sloan, I think I got that from. Yeah, it was Pat Sloan, and because I've always just pressed to the dark side because that's how I was taught, and basically I automatically press to the dark side when I'm piecing. I just do it automatically. So with this one, I want you to get into the habit of pressing your seams open because it'll sit flatter. You're working with triangles too, and when you've got lots of triangles coming in, like in some blocks there's a few triangles coming in, that can be bulky as well, so that's why I want you to do that. So give your machine a go at 1.5 and see how you go, and see if they open up. Short of that, just do a back stitch. That's no biggie. It's, yeah, but just be careful when you are doing your back stitch that you are going straight and you're not veering towards the raw edge or you're veering into the block, because this will affect your piecing, okay? It will affect the ability for it to go together, because it's like a jigsaw puzzle and you want your pieces to fit together nicely. So yeah, so basically that's why I want them open. Alrighty, so we've covered the end of block wrinkles. I press, I don't iron, I don't use steam, and I try to avoid using starch at the end of the block because that can also shrink the fabrics as well, and you'll get that same sort of what looks like puckering, but it's not. Yeah, and we've covered the cutting. So yeah, just Jill, give me a heads up once you've done that and let me know how you've gone with that stitch length and how it's sitting for you. Again, just yeah, just basically do a back stitch if it doesn't work for you. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to cover is a question came up about when we're nesting our seams together. All right, so I am going to try to show you as best as I can. So I've got these pieces sewn together. One is, you've seen, has got no wrinkles, and the other one has. That's not going to make any difference to my nesting. So what I generally do, and I've got a pin here, what I generally do is I lay my pieces on top of each other, which I'm going to do off camera, okay, and I find where my seams have got to meet, and I lay them flat on top of each other. So hopefully I can get this up there for you. So you can see there, is it focusing? Camera's taking a little while to focus this morning. So you can see there that they're laying on top of each other. Those seams are laying on top of each other. Okay. Then what I do is I make sure that all my edges are fine. So you can see there, they're perfectly, you can't see either one of the greens on either side. So they're nice. They're still in place. And I've never done this before, holding my hands up in the air. I always use the table. And then I use my flower head pins, which are quite long, and they're fine. This one's bent. That's why it's out of my pin cushion. But they're quite long. Okay, they're about 1.5 inches long. So you can see there on my index finger, they're quite long. Okay, the heads are flat. And they're a finer pin than most of the plastic cheapy ones around. So I like these because of the length. And basically you can use your glass head pins, or you can use dressmaking pins. They're really good for trying to get your seams to go together. So what I tend to do is I just eyeball it. I go into my fabric about 1/4 inch down. And that's not a hard and fast rule. Okay, and I stick it in. But what you can see here, I don't know if you can see how I've actually stuck that right in the junction of the seam. Okay, so I'm right in there, and what I want the pin to do on the other side, okay, is come out in the same spot. Okay, so it's coming out. Oh, it's just off to the side a bit. So there, you can see there, it's actually just gone straight through the seam. So it moves nice and easy. You can see there, it's just going in and out. Okay, and then what I do is on the other side, about 1/4 inch down, I go, excuse me, I go into that seam again, and I come out on the other side, almost like between the threads that you stitched into it. And I come out. So you can see there, takes a little bit longer, but I know when I go through the machine after I've done the other one and lined everything up, I know that is going to not move. And as I said, I do sew over my pins slowly, but I do sew over my pins, and I don't tend to remove them, because every time I remove them, I tend to move my junctions, my seams, and all the rest of it. So that's what I do with that. And then if you've got say you've pinned your things together, and you know how when you get a little bit of wave on one side, like there's excess fabric on one side and it's nice and tight on the other side, and all your seams are lined up, if you put that excess, so where there's more fabric in your square, if you put that down on your feed dogs, okay, and stitch it through, you'll find that will go through just nicely. And that was a tip that I got from way back when I started. I got that from Missouri Star Quilt Company, of all places. In one of her tutorials, she was having issues with it, and she said, put that excess fabric down on your feed dogs and feed it through that way, and the feed dogs will actually take it up and even it out. And you know what? It actually works, and I have told that tip to so many people. It's helped so many people out. So now I've pinned that. You can actually see that the other one is lining up correctly. Okay, so I can put a pin in there, and when I sew that through and just sew over the seams, it's going to be fine. So I forget who asked that question. I think it may have been Becky, I'm not too sure, but whoever asked that question, give that a go and tell me how you went. Okay, so Mary's saying feed dogs can really help. My computer just shut off, which is just great. So I can't see the comments anymore. Yeah, so just give that a go and see how you go. I'm positive that you're going to have success with that. If you try it that way, I'm positive you will have success with that. The next thing I want to cover is, and I know I'm talking a lot today, but I've got a lot to cover. The next thing I want to cover is people stressing about these little blocks. Okay, you're so funny. Like, I sit here and watch the comments and see everybody commenting on it, and everybody getting really freaked out by these little pieces of fabric. If you can sew with big pieces of fabric, you can sew with little pieces of fabric. I promise you, and Nikki can attest to this, I promise you it will be okay. Give it a go. Don't be scared. Don't sit on the sidelines, because you never know until you give it a go. I really, really, really want you to try these blocks. And even if that's all you make out of the block, just the 9 patch, but just give it a go. It's not as scary. Just remember to cut correctly, take your time, don't stress, and just think of that little piece of fabric as a big piece of fabric. It is no different. You are doing exactly the same thing, okay? And another thing, everybody is going for perfection, and I love that about you, but seeing a lot of you haven't worked with small pieces before, I'd just like you to just enjoy the journey and try and learn as much as you can, and basically don't worry about you being perfect or anything like that, because finished is better than perfection, okay? And you're going to enjoy yourself so much more if you can just get something finished. So I'd really like you to give it a go and not to stress, okay? Because this is not supposed to be stressful. It's supposed to be fun. And there's plenty of us here that are going to help you through every step of the way. And even if I'm asleep, there's plenty of people that are in the group during the day for you guys that are in America and the Northern Hemisphere. We're here to help as much as we can. And if we don't know, as Sarah said this morning, Nicole will be up soon and she'll be able to answer our questions. So you'll be fine. I promise you, you'll get through it. Okay, so we've covered all our seams and we've covered our enjoy the journey. Now I covered all that. Okay, the other one that came up this morning or last night while I was in bed was, as Biz put it, I think she put it as thread spew or something along those lines. But there was a post that went up about getting rid of bird's nest. A few people went into meltdown. No, we're not getting rid of bird's nest. What we were talking about was the jumbled up thread that you get when you start sewing. Now, Murda, there are, I think I'm pronouncing your name properly, there are a couple reasons for that happens. Is one, you haven't threaded your machine correctly, or your bobbin, it may be incorrectly. So rethread your machine, re-put your bobbin in. The other one is that some machines like to suck the cotton down. So your tail thread, you should just put your thumb on that when you start, and that will stop it from sucking down into the bobbin and alleviate that problem. And the other one is when you are sewing, if you start, you would have noticed in the YouTube video, and if you haven't seen the YouTube video, head over to YouTube. I'll put the links above this video at the end of live streaming so you can find them. I'm using a green piece of fabric, okay, and I start my sewing on that. So if I'm going to have any issues whatsoever with my thread, it's going to be on what we call a leader cloth. And it's called a leader cloth because it's the lead cloth before your patches go through. So try that, Murder, and see how you go, and it will help with as you call them, bird's nests. So basically, if you give that a go, because my vintage machine, it sucks the threads down into it, and if I'm not careful, it can cause that sort of problem. And I use my vintage machine a lot because on my modern machine, where the feed dogs are, there's quite a wide opening where the needle goes down in, because it's got decorative stitches on it. It's not just a straight stitcher, and I find that I get a lot of that stuff happening, and that's why I use the leader roll. And it also sucks my triangles down the edge of my fabric, so that's another reason to use it as well, especially when you're working with triangles. I tend to use my vintage machine for a lot of piecing these days, because I do a lot of triangles, and this one here was done all on the vintage machine. I had no issues whatsoever, as long as I held, and I didn't need a leader cloth for that, as long as I held those tail threads at the back, I was fine. It went through okay, and I didn't get that bird's nest, and I didn't have my corner of my triangle getting sucked down into the feed dogs, because it's just a little hole for the needle to go in. So it's not a wide because it's got no decorative stitches. It's a straight stitcher and that's it. Okay, so give that a go, Murder, and see if that helps you out. Now, there was a question also about how to read the pattern. Okay, so these patterns, as I said in the a video, it doesn't come with written instructions. So if you print this off, you are basically just looking at these pictures just here and your patch count. Okay, so this column here is your cutting diagrams and this is your patch count. And they are confusing. When I first started using EQ7, it did my head in. There were a lot of patterns out there that use EQ7 and it does everybody's head in. That's why when I wrote, done the video, I also wrote a blog post to go with it. So you could, if you didn't want to watch the video, you could actually just do it from the blog. But if you just print this off, and this is all you really need for your cutting instructions, you don't need to print off the transcript and you don't need to print off the colouring in page. You can just print this one off, or you can save it to your phone if you don't have a printer, okay, because it is a PDF. And all phones come with PDF readers now, and your computer has PDFs. If you don't, just go to adobe.com and download a PDF reader from there. It's the best one. It's the most adaptable one. And you'll be able to open this up and print it off or save it to your computer. Now, I've had several people test the link because there's been a few people that haven't been able to print it off. For whatever reason that is, I don't know. Everybody that I've got to independently test it, so not from my computer, from wherever they are, they've been able to print it off. Sometimes it can come down to, Elizabeth and I had some issues the other night. I think it came down to maybe just printer setup or something like that. We're not 100% sure there. I can email you the files if you want them. Okay, I don't want to get into the habit of emailing them because that's a lot of work. You know, when you're getting, you know, over 100 people asking for emails, yes, I can send them out in one go, but it is time consuming and I'd rather spend time chatting with you and sorting out any other problems. So if you do have issues and you really have really struggled to get it to work, shoot me an inbox and I'll try and sort it out for you. I found with Elizabeth the other day and also with Linda, I could just send them the files in inbox as well. If I'm on my mobile phone, I can only send them via email because I've got the hard copies on my computer at home, not on my phone. Okay, so reading the instructions, and I hopefully can get a little bit closer so you can see this a bit clearer. So see A here, it's got a box. Okay, you've got a shaded area and you've got some lines on it and you've got some measurements. So it's 3 1/4, and I'm sorry if this is coming through backwards, but I've got my phone flipped around. So it's 3 1/4 that we've got to cut, and you can see there's a line there and a line there. So that's a 3 1/4, and then it's going up here, and it's telling you the size over here. So for your horizontal, it's underneath, and for your vertical, it is on the side. Okay, and then you've got this this line here, and this is indicating to us that we are cutting triangles. Okay, so what's going to happen here, for those that haven't already cut them and already worked it out, it was just a few people were really struggling to understand it, and I understand that because I was there myself not too long ago with this program. Okay, so basically what you're going to do is you're going to cut a square, and then from that square you're going to diagonally cut it corner to corner, and you're going to yield 2 triangles from it. Okay, so over here you've got your patch count, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing and people have cut excess. So if you've got a diagonal line, okay, and over here it's telling you to cut 12 patches, you don't need to cut 12 squares, you just need to cut 6, because you're going to get 2 patches from each square, and that's going to give your patch count 12. Okay, and it's the same for the blue. So if you see a diagonal line, don't cut the number of squares that you see here. If it's just 1 here, then it's divided by 2, so that gives you 6. So whatever this number here is, you would divide that by 2, and that gives you 6 squares that you need to cut. Okay, now without giving away the next block, I want to show you something. So I'm going to fold it in half because I know that some of you like to get sneak peeks, but I'm not going to show you because I haven't made it yet. And I may change my mind on which block. So this one here, again, okay, it's telling you, and it's got a different instruction. So the triangle one, it said we had to cut 12 patches. So that was 6 squares. This one here, and I'll just, it's a 5 1/4, okay, and it's telling me that I've got to cut 8 patches. All right. So this time you can see that we've got to diagonally cut it, and we're going to get twice. So once this way and then once this way, and that's going to give you 4 patches. Now we only need 8, so we don't need to cut 8 squares, we just need to cut 2 squares to get 8 patches. Okay, so when it says, and down here, okay, this one is again a triangle, so it says 8 patches again. All right, so with just the triangle, this time you have to actually cut 4 squares to get the 8 patches. Okay, if it's a square and it has, in this case, 1 patch, you only have to cut 1 patch. Okay, it's only when you see these diagonal lines that you'll have to actually do a little bit of math. So you'll either have to divide it by 2 or divide it by 4. Okay, and I hope that hasn't made too many people sick, a little bit of zooming in and out. So I hope that makes it a little bit clearer for you. Again, if you've got any issues, just shoot me an inbox or put a question up. Someone will be able to answer it. So you can see here, this is our one that we're working on at the moment, called Goose in the Pond. So this one here, for the cut A, we need 12 patches in white and 12 patches in blue. So you need to cut 6 squares at 3 1/4 and then diagonally cut them to yield 2 triangles out of each square, and that, if you've cut 6, that will give you 12 patches. And then down here we're just working with squares, and then cut D was a rectangle, and again there was no angles on that, so you didn't have to do any math by dividing it or anything like that. So again, if you have any issues with that, just let me know. Okay, I can see that the chat's really going off at the moment. So if you've got any more questions at all, please put them up. I'm just going to have to enter the door because someone's here. One moment please, and I'll be back. No, he's not, sorry. He's not? No. You know what time he's in that? No, he's in and out all the time. You best just giving him a call. Have you got a card?
I do have his number, just I don't have all credits ring out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was going to see if he wanted the full drive for Ricky.
Yeah, you probably try back to this afternoon, mate. I have no idea where he's gone today.
Yeah, no, that's all good.
Okay, no worries. Right, thanks. Okay, I'm back. Do I have any questions? Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so I can't see any of the questions coming up. So basically, yeah, if you've, I don't know why this is doing this, but anyway, we will just refresh my computer page and see if we can get some of the questions to come up. The next block I am starting to work on, and I promise there are some small bits in it, but not as small as 1 1/4. Some of the measurements I just read out then, you've seen that they're a lot bigger than the last pieces. It's a different sort of block. You will need, for that one, you'll need a background color and 2 different colors because it's contrasting. So that would be something to think about. Mine is going to be in purple this time. So yeah. Will the patterns be available for ever? I haven't started yet. Kathleen, yes, they are going to be available forever. As long as Blogger is in existence, my patterns will be available. I have also done them over on YouTube. So even if you just find me on YouTube, there is a link there to the website where you can get them. You can print them off, you can save them. Yeah, I am planning on having them there for forever, for as long as they are around. So that's where all my stuff goes up. Thank you, Jill. I'm trying. I'm still trying to find my feet. I'm learning a lot, and I'm learning a lot of stuff by mistake too with this technology. So yeah, I hope that this has answered a lot of your questions today. I really do appreciate everybody joining me. As I said, if you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, please head over and subscribe to that, and also follow along on our blog as well, because I do put posts up on there. Not everything gets a video, but yeah, I do put posts up on there. The recording studio is underway, and I'm going to do some vlogging, as they call it, and basically I will give you the rundown of everything that I'm going to do to this Pentac back. Like, I have no funds for it, so it's going to be interesting to see how it comes together. I actually do have a small budget, and I'm on budget at the moment. I'm actually under budget, which is good. So I have found a few things that I can put in there to just pretty it up a little bit. Hubby is on the hunt for an air conditioning for it, because it's small and it gets hot here in Queensland. I've seen that a lot of you are under a lot of snow and quite cold. We're, roasting over here. So, and I'm glad you're here, Biz. Thank you very much for joining us, and Mary too. So if you've got any questions, put them down below. If we don't get them in the live chat, I will try to answer them a bit later, because I go back and have a look at all the questions. Head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Hit the little bell beside it so you get the notifications. I am going to do a video of how to do that. It'll either be tonight or tomorrow morning. It'll be here in the group. Don't forget to share with your friends so we can make this community awesome and get it as big as we can, and get everybody feeling the love of quilting. So I'm going to sign off for now, because I can hear Mia in the background starting to get very upset that I've been out here for 40 minutes and not paying attention to her, even though she's with Auntie Ray. I will talk to you again next week. Next week I have a couple of appointments during the day on Thursday, so I'm actually going to do a live stream later in the evening here in Australia. So that will most likely be the morning time for most of you, and hopefully Elizabeth will be able to join us, because it is around 1 a.m. for her at the moment in the UK. So hopefully she'll be able to join us, and a few people that can't join us during the day here in Australia will be online as well. So you're welcome, Valerie. I'm happy to research as much as I can, and I will try to get as much information about this EQ7. Again, just touching on that, the EQ7 patterns that I'm using, I am actually printing straight from their software. I am not actually creating these blocks. These are just standard issue sample blocks that come in the software, and I thought it would be a good place to start for us, because a lot of people haven't used it, mainly because of the price point. People aren't keen to spend that much. Hey Becky. Yeah, they aren't that keen to spend that much on a software program, especially when they don't know much about it. So this was sort of a way that you could get to know how the software sort of works. And as I said, this is just straight out of the software. I've just gone into their library, I've picked a block, I thought, oh, I like the look of that block. I haven't even, in most cases, I haven't even changed the colors except for the background. So I haven't fiddled with it or anything like that. So it's straight out of their software. So there's got to be a reason why they have these measurements, when, all I've got to put in there is I want the finished block, once it's in the quilt, will be 12 inches, and then it spits out the pattern exactly how I want it. And I can change the size of the block, so I can have it as a big, 20-inch block, right down to a 4.5-inch block. So not that I would do that with this particular pattern. So for whatever reason, this is what it's putting out. Now I've just got to wait for them to get back to me. Now, as I said, I was toing and froing with them earlier on while it was still their opening hours. I now have not had any emails back from them, because I'm assuming they're all gone home to bed. So basically, it's just now a waiting game. So as soon as I know anything, I will let you know. I hope I've covered everything for everyone today. As again, if you've got any questions, leave them down below. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you very much for sharing. And don't forget to just talk up this group on Facebook and let's get it out there. All right, everybody, you have a great day or a great evening on what's left of your day, and I'll talk to you again. Bye for now.